Wants to listen.
Are you really ready though?
I'm always kind of a little scared, but ultimately no, we'll come out stronger at the end.
All right. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about why you should start an exercise or workout program at 70% effort.
70% effort. I love this one. This is so good.
Yeah. Do you?
Okay. Well, it's true. I mean, I'll start this off by saying, let's call it what it is. Most people find it really challenging to stick to whatever you want to call it, exercise, training routine, whatever it is. And I've found in my experience, and I feel like you found the same thing, that when you think about it, we as human beings, and I say this over and over again, I know I sound like a broken record, or I guess they don't make records anymore. It's like a broken MP3.
Back in your day.
But as human beings, we have this tendency to drastically overestimate what we can accomplish in a day and drastically underestimate what we can accomplish in a year. And that's just our nature, right? We're wired for quick results. And this is the way it starts. Most people will kick off, it's Monday, January 1st, and they think they need to, go to the gym for 4 hours and absolutely kill themselves and drink nothing but cabbage juice all day. And that's how they're going to get the results they want, when nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. But how do you know what, 70% is, number one? So let's just say there's a beginner coming in, they've never done 100%. In terms of, working out, how do they know really how much to dial it back?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is if you think, and as a beginner, this is really challenging to understand, because that's part of what comes along with your, what we call your training age. So training age is the number of years of experience that you have training, right? So, I mean, a 50-year-old can have a lower training age than a 16-year-old, but it comes with listening to your body, learning your body, and understanding what you're capable of. But in the most simplest terms, if you think you can do 10 repetitions of a movement, do 7.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. Easy.
Yeah. Keep your rate of perceived exertion at about 70%. So if a 10 is maximum effort, go about a 7, right? So another way of, we talk about this in our program, eating till you're 70% full, or sorry, eating till you're 80% full. You should have that same kind of mentality with approaching your training and nutrition, your training at the start, at the outset, which is feeling like when you're done your workout, you should feel like you could still do a little bit more.
Right.
Right? At least at the outset, for sure.
Yeah.
And I get it. A lot of people will say, oh, I could do so much more, though I'm not doing anything for myself at 70%. We have to stop this mentality, because usually what happens is people go to the gym the first few times, or they'll change their training and they'll go 110% of effort, and then they just crush themselves. So here's what happens if you go that hard in effort. You increase your risk of injury, and it doesn't become a pleasurable experience at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it often can scare people away, I feel like. It is very debilitating. So people are like, okay, well, I don't want to go that hard again. They learn kind of,
Yeah, it's not a great experience, right? So, I give the example of someone that's capable of doing 100 push-ups, for example. What if they started out by doing 70 and they felt energized after they did that and felt like I could still do more? But next time they did 71, then they did 72, then they did 73. After 30 days, you're up to 100. After 60 days, you're at 130 in theory, versus people that go to the gym that can do 100 and think they need to do 110 or 120. How long is that going to last?
Yeah.
Right. it's the individual that stays with this consistently over time, over the long term, that is going to get the results.
So you're saying even throughout the whole program, you should always be going 70%?
No. I'm saying at the outset, yeah. At the beginning, until you start to build some capacity, until you start to learn your body. So if an individual, to me, if an individual is saying, how do I know what 70% is? That individual must go 70%, right?
Right.
The individual that comes into this and says, I've been training for 10 years, I know what 70% is. Yeah, they should probably still go close to 70%, at least for the first few workouts when they're adjusting their style of training and trying new movements, like many of the movements in our HOP90 XT, for example, or in the Move Strong training. Many of these are what I would call non-conventional movements. If you go to a commercial gym, you don't see very many people doing these movements at all.
Right. No.
The ones that we're teaching, right?
Yeah, so they are very different, which I think can be hard for people who are, let's say they're more advanced in their training. So they're obviously confident, they're coming in, they're like, oh, I got this, no problem.
Yeah.
And then they go.
Check your ego at the door.
Yeah. Just lock that up.
Yeah, throw that up. The people that succeed the most, I've found in I can give tons of examples, but let's just talk specifically about our program, are the people that approach it with the beginner's mindset, right?
Well, because it is very different, the tempo, it's more controlled. Strength equals control. So we're not going out, 100% out of the gate, and more potential of injury and yeah.
So let's talk about that real quick. We'll do another call. Like you had a list of a bunch of great topics. So we'll do another call on training to full range and end range training, and we could talk about all the concepts: functional range conditioning, range of strength training, all that, which I love to talk about. But that is true. So what I see in most people, even in we would consider themselves advanced or of an older training range, if you have not done end range training, which I think is more important than any other style of training that there is, in my humble opinion. If you have not done this and you have kept your training to shorten middle ranges, if you take that same intensity and carry it over into end range training, you're at a high risk for injury, because the more you strengthen the middle, the end ranges, the more of a discrepancy between your mid-range strength and end range strength. Similarly, the more of a discrepancy between your flexibility and mobility, the higher your risk of injury. Right? Okay. And the goal of your training should be to decrease your risk of injury, right?
100%.
We try to create very strong bodies in the end ranges because that's where injury tends to occur.
Yeah, at the insertion points.
Exactly.
Should we get an example of an end range movement? Are we?
Should we? I mean, I think the split squat is one of my favorites, right?
Yeah.
And I know you.
Oh, whoops. So like a regular split squat, I guess people were like here.
Well, I would say no. I would say yeah. So show a lunge first.
Okay. Well.
And then
lunge. Step forward.
Right. Lunge. Typically, when people do lunges, right, the instruction is don't cross your knee over the toe.
Right.
So a lunge is an up and down movement, right? Exactly there. Yep, there. Be careful, don't cross your knees over your toes, though. It's very dangerous. So, okay. So now show what a split squat looks like. Okay.
So move strong split squat, because this is what I know as a split squat too, just like that.
No. A move strong.
We'll talk about that later. But here.
Right. Good. trying to get as much contact between that hamstring and calf as possible. That's better. Trying to drive that front knee forward while keeping that back leg nice and straight. Your pelvic tilt. You get so much more benefit from that movement. You're increasing joint integrity, increasing ankle mobility, strengthening the knee, strengthening the thigh, opening up hip extension, all these benefits.
Yeah, it's helped me doing the splits. And I would have never, that wasn't, something I really thought that I could do, but I'm so close.
Without ever directly training the front split, you get the gains from doing the split squat versus doing a traditional lunge, what we would call, or what you would refer to as a traditional split squat. You're just training the middle range of the movement, and you lose out on all those benefits further again. And then by training that consistently, you're creating a greater discrepancy between strength in the mid-range and strength in the end range. So we kind of got off topic, but that's fine. It's still good information, so who cares, right? But we'll do a whole other call just on end range strength training, and we can discuss all the principles behind it and why it's so valuable, but super important, right? But let's go back to 70%, exactly, 70%. So leaving some gas in the tank for next time. So the best way to describe a 70% workout, you should leave that workout feeling like you can do more.
Right.
Then we assess, what does the body feel like the next day, the day after. Then we return and we gauge, okay, so if we were super sore and we couldn't walk, maybe we stay at that 70% for a little while. If we weren't that bad, then we can increase the intensity, do an extra rep on a few movements. But if you're in this for the long game, you have the long view. If you go out at 110% and get injured or don't enjoy your training or have a negative experience, you're going to stop. If you go at 70% and you feel, wow, this wasn't that bad, I feel good after, I feel good, you're more likely to go back and stay consistently training. And that's when the magic happens. The magic really happens when you've been training 3, 4, 6 months, a year, 2 years. It takes roughly, Charles Pelquin, my mentor, would say it would take 7 years of proper training and programming to peak a strength athlete. You have a long way to go. Here's the thing, most trainers in this industry, there's low barriers to entry. They get one certification and they think they know it all, which, listen, I dedicate 25% of my time on a bad week to learning and research, and that's not even exploration through application. I'm just talking about finding resources to study and learn from. I find the best in the world and I learn from them. That's why our people are getting the benefits of all of this information, right? But if you're not doing that work, how can you be a great coach and get people results? And then what I see happening, and it's so sad to me, most trainers simply default because, listen, programming is hard.
Yep.
Getting someone results consistently for a long period of time is hard. That's hard to do as a trainer. It's not easy.
Right.
Most trainers simply default to what I call is the lowest level of training, which is just getting people tired and sweaty.
Yep.
And I think most trainers, when I speak to them, are afraid to tell their clients only go 70% because they're not confident that that's going to get them results. We've done this with hundreds of people. We know this is the best way we've found to get results. And if we find a better way, we'll change and adapt.
Right.
But right now, I've not found a better way. And when I do, I'll change my opinion. But for now, there's no better way, and then I'll tell you, one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts is when I see these pictures with these trainers and they take a picture of their client laying on the ground giving the thumbs up and they're passed out in a sweaty mess. Listen, anyone can do that to anyone. Coach, I could take you and, all right, let's do 1,000 burpees and 1,000 deadlifts, and I'll leave you in a sweaty mess. But what's the point?
Right.
How long can you do that and continue to get results for? Not very long.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to do 1,000 reps of one thing. I think that's how you easily get injured. That repetition of, you know, this exact same movement that many times at once. But this is what so sometimes I'm like, okay, you're like, this is the lowest level of training, it's getting sweaty, but like I enjoy getting sweaty. I like, you know, sweating out those toxins. So like, is there a time and a place where you should be getting sweaty? Like, are we, or is it more or less, you know? So I'm like, hey, I sweat a lot, number one. Number two, shouldn't we want to like get our heart rate up at a certain level so that we're, you know, challenging ourselves?
Great question. So I'm not saying that you should not get sweaty and tired from training.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I see that too often. I don't see intelligent programming that's building bodies up. I see trainers throwing shit on the wall, shit against the wall, because they don't know what they're doing in terms of programming. They don't know how to periodize a program. They don't know how to continually progress someone. So they default to, I'm just going to do as much stuff as I can until I exhaust this person so they feel like they're getting value from me being their glorified rep counters, right? Yeah. You know, they're cheerleaders at best. And this is why I tell people, sorry, I don't care if this is my opinion or whatever. I'm more than happy to have this conversation with anyone. But I tell my people, hey, I'm not a cheerleader, right? Actually, one of my mentors, Lucas Aaron, said this best. He said, I'm a coach, not a cheerleader. So when I say good job, that actually means good job.
Right.
Right? Most trainers are cheerleaders.
Yeah.
It's not what I do. I'm not here. When people train with me and they go, oh, how many reps was that? I don't know.
I know. I'm the same way. Sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, I'm focusing on like your form and everything.
Yeah.
So that's why
I always say I'm terrible at math. I'm not here to count your reps. If you need that, listen. I'm sure there are lovely trainers at many of the commercial gyms that you can go and find that will sit there and count reps for you. It's not me. I don't do that. Right? Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Be unapologetic.
Yeah, I'm not really sorry, but okay, back to your question. So I'm not saying don't get tired and sweaty when you train.
Yeah.
I'm saying that that's that kind of default, and I say it a little bit in jest, that's when there's no smart programming available, that they'll just hammer people to make them feel tired and sweaty so they feel like they did something. Yeah. Oftentimes, when I train with people, they'll say, oh, I feel like I could have done a bit more. And I go, okay, slow down. Look at your progress, right?
Yeah.
You know, intelligent strength training doesn't necessarily always lead to that. It's not easy, but it doesn't always lead to being in a sweaty pool, sweaty mess in a pool of your own sweat laying on the ground after a session, right? Also, by the way, you can't physically sustain that day in and day out. If every one of your workouts leaves you in an absolute exhausted, tired mess, it's only a matter of time before the body pushes back and you're overtrained, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Unless you're a full-time athlete and you've got, you know, you're monitoring all the right things like heart rate variability and all the signs of overtraining and all that stuff, and your diet is on point, you're sleeping 9 hours a night, you have no stress from a job, all you're doing is training, all good. I'm sure you can probably handle that if you're genetically predisposed to that.
Yeah.
But the average individual who has other things to do in their life, who that's already drawing from their energy, you don't need to be broken down further. You don't need to go to the gym to further elevate cortisol. And that's the issue with these quick magic bullet at 45 Orange Theory. That's it. To me, that's the lowest level of training. It's fine to do that occasionally.
Yeah.
It's not okay to do that every single day.
So then I was going to say too, does the 70% rule apply to both strength training days as well as your cardio days? Because so we have strength training days, we also have some HIIT and Tabata days, which tend to be obviously not as long a workout because it is a higher intensity. Are we starting off 7% there too?
Yeah, I mean that's on those days. If you're brand new to training and your training age is really young or low, yeah, you probably still want to go around 70%. But I think on those days you could probably build up to more maximal intensity quicker as long as you're doing so safely.
Right.
Yeah, the purpose of high intensity intervals is higher intensity, right? And the goal, what people need to understand, the goal of those sessions is you want to elevate the intensity so that you can drive something. It's called EPOC, post-exercise oxygen consumption. That's when you're going to stimulate metabolism for the 24 hours following that session.
Yeah.
So you do not want to do that every single day. Not a good idea. That's why our program is structured as such that you have appropriate rest days, the appropriate amount of strength training days, the appropriate amount of HIIT and Tabata days, plus some low intensity cardio sprinkled in there, so that you're testing and working each energy system in the body, and doing so in a smart way where you can recover and optimize hormonal balance.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with those constantly doing HIIT and too much cardio and all that stuff is you're gonna negatively impact your hormones. You're gonna spike cortisol, higher chance of having chronically elevated cortisol, which causes all sorts of issues, as you know we discuss in our signature program. But not a good idea, right?
Right. Well then, so obviously, let's just say somebody's coming in, they're like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm going 70%. And then the next day they are still sore. So then, we're not going to be like, oh, you did it wrong. Obviously it's something that you learn to gauge. And, if you're really debilitated, like, if you're really having a hard time getting down to the toilet, then maybe next time don't go as hard on your legs, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So good point. I think, anytime you're starting a new style of training, you're at a higher likelihood of feeling that soreness or what we call DOMS, which usually occurs, 24 to 48 hours after your training session. And then as your training age increases and the body adapts, then you're less likely to experience that. But that has no bearing on the success of your program and your progressions and results, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't experience a high level of soreness once I've adapted to a new training program. When I switch and switch tempos, switch rest times, switch energy systems, all that stuff, new movements, absolutely I'll get sore for sure. Yeah. I think that's kind of expected. But again, when I have a new movement in my program, even at my training age, no jokes, and I feel like I'm setting you up for an old man joke there. Yeah. I'll still go 70%, right, on that first day, and I'll probably build up closer to maximal a little quicker than most. But yeah, no, I still think it's a good idea to go 70%.
Yeah. I think the main point is, just being aware is the first thing. So that's awesome. And if you're ever sore the next day, don't feel bad about yourself. We're going to give you guys some muscle recovery tips too, on another call. But yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else, Coach? We cover it all?
No, not that I can think of right now. But yeah, if you guys ever have any other questions, don't hesitate to comment below. We want to know what you guys want to know. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah, Coach T actually has a list of topics that are really good topics to cover for the next few weeks. But again, If you guys want to hear something specifically or want us to answer specific questions, drop a comment and we'll make sure that we do that.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Appreciate you, Coach. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, yes, thank you. Okay, have a wonderful day.
Okay, take care.
See you guys.